ici et porter la voix des femmes, non seulement des femmes de mon pays, mais les femmes de toute l'Afrique qui travaillent dans la petite pêche. Et merci de me donner l'opportunité à cet espace. Et pour nous, je voulais d'abord rappeler que nous, les femmes de la petite pêche, nous sommes toujours les premières à ressentir les effets du changement climatique. Mais simplement parce que notre activité dépend des ressources naturelles. Et donc, pour notre survie, pour notre sécurité alimentaire de nos familles, de nos communautés, nous dépendons des ressources naturelles. Et c'est pour ça, pour la petite précision, pour nous, femmes de petite pêche, l'aspect lucratif passe en second lieu. Parce que la préservation de notre activité passe vraiment en premier à côté de l'aspect lucratif. Ce n'est pas d'abord ça. C'est la sécurité. Et nous savons que la préservation de notre activité passe par le respect de la nature. C'est pour ça qu'en tant que femmes de petite pêche, nous nous sommes toujours engagés à préserver la nature. Nous nous sommes engagés à faire la sensibilisation sur les techniques qui respectent la nature, parce que notre survie en dépend. Ce n'est pas du business pour nous, parce qu'un business, quand un secteur ne marche pas, on peut changer de business. Mais ici, pour nous, il s'agit d'une identité. Et quand je dis ça, ce ne sont pas seulement des mots, c'est des choses que nous vivons. C'est notre vie. C'est vraiment notre vie. C'est pour ça qu'en Afrique subsaharienne, par exemple, plusieurs femmes transformatrices ont adopté aujourd'hui pour la transformation, par exemple, du poisson fumé, des fumoirs à gaz, des fumoirs FTT, qui, et pourtant, parlons de l'aspect financier, ces fumoirs-là sont moins rentables par rapport à la capacité de fumage comparé à nos fumoirs traditionnels qui ont une grande capacité. Mais nous avons mis en avant la préservation de l'activité parce qu'on nous a dit que ces fumoirs qu'on nous apporte préservent la nature et donc la durabilité de notre activité. C'est pour ça que nous avons pensé, et pour certains, on peut appeler ça sacrifice, mais j'ai rappelé en amont que ce n'est pas d'abord l'argent qui compte, ce n'est pas le gain, mais l'avenir de notre activité, parce que cette activité, c'est notre vie. Et nous avons fait au sein de Fishnet la sensibilisation sur les bonnes pratiques. Quand je parle des bonnes pratiques, c'est les techniques qui préservent la nature, qui respectent la nature. Et nous en avons fait notre cheval de bataille. Et en tant que femmes, nous luttons pour plaider en faveur des mesures qui préservent la nature pour la survie de notre activité, pour l'avenir de notre activité. Cette activité, pour nous, c'est une activité qui se transmet de mère en fille. Ce n'est pas la recherche de gains d'abord, pour ne pas me répéter. Et donc, pour cela, ce qui nous manque aujourd'hui, je pense que si nous avons plus de pouvoir, plus de possibilités, et si nous pouvons aussi, en dehors des quelques actions que nous menons avec notre courage et nos petits moyens, si nous pouvons aussi prendre part à la prise des décisions, ça nous donnerait plus de possibilités pour défendre non seulement notre activité, mais aussi la sécurité alimentaire de tout le monde. Donc, je voulais ici préciser que quand je dis que cette activité, ce n'est pas d'abord l'argent, ce ne sont pas simplement des mots, mais c'est vraiment, quand je parle, et dans ma peau, je ne peux pas expliquer ce que je ressens passer cette activité. Pour moi et pour plusieurs femmes qui en dépendent, c'est toute la vie. Merci.
Thank you for that. I think kind of what you're saying, that you're the first line of action, and you're there to preserve and respect, and it's part of your life. You're part of the ocean, and I think that's actually a sentiment that we heard earlier when we were talking with Zoila in kind of our pre-meeting. That was something that came up a lot. So maybe turning to you, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit to essential strategies from small-scale fishers, specifically in conservation and management of ocean resources. like Julia was saying, your communities are the first line of action. So what's kind of the actions that you guys are taking to help conserve these resources? And then also just a quick apologies if translation is being a little spotty, but thank you for being patient with us. So yeah, over to you.
Sí, muchísimas gracias. Primero, dar las gracias por la invitación. La primera estrategia que logramos nosotros los pescadores artesanales fue unirnos no solamente en Chile, sino que unirnos como Latinoamérica, como Centroamérica, como Europa, porque hoy día también pertenecemos a la red iberoamericana. Y también nosotros venimos desde siempre del Foro Mundial, donde estamos muchos países juntos. Pero hoy día logramos unirnos los que estamos viviendo el problema. Latinoamérica y Centroamérica son los que estamos viviendo hoy día el problema grave del cambio climático. Y eso nos llevó a unirnos como Unión Latinoamericana. Otra estrategia es que nosotros mismos hemos sabido cuidar los recursos. Hay áreas costeras protegidas, parques marinos y un montón de cosas. Pero cuando inventan cosas, tienen que tomarnos también a nosotros en consideración. Los que vivimos en el borde costero, los que hacemos el esfuerzo, los que extraemos peces, como bien lo dijo mi compañera. Nosotros somos los que alimentamos al pueblo cuando hay crisis. La pesca artesanal alimenta al pueblo, sobre todo en Chile. Para la pandemia, nosotros alimentamos a nuestro país, los pescadores artesanales, saliendo a trabajar igual, y eso que estábamos en pandemia. Tenemos áreas de manejo, donde nosotros cuidamos el mar, cuidamos los recursos, hacemos acuicultura a pequeña escala, pero de especies nativas, no de especies introducidas. Porque ¿qué es lo que hace la especie introducida? Contamina, y al contaminar, contamina las aguas, contamina todo. Y eso también tiene efecto en el cambio climático. Si el cambio climático y el calentamiento global no viene porque nacieron de la nada, vienen porque nosotros mismos lo hemos creado. Nosotros mismos hemos hecho que esto pase. Pero asimismo nosotros, como los pescadores, hemos ido creando conciencia de que tenemos que ir cambiando la situación, hemos ido tomando acciones, cuidando los recursos, trabajando en pos de los recursos. Insisto, teniendo, para mí, pescador artesanal, de toda la vida, yo voy al mar, las mejores áreas costeras protegidas son las áreas de manejo, las que trabajan los pescadores artesanales, porque las cuidamos, las protegemos, generamos empleo y cuidamos los recursos. Hemos logrado que recursos que estaban ya prácticamente exterminados, lo hemos logrado volver a recuperar. Esas son acciones. Pero necesitamos que todos tomen las mismas acciones. No podemos hacerlo nosotros solos. Los pescadores no somos un punto en la tierra. Al contrario, somos millones de personas que viven a nivel mundial. Solo mujeres pescadoras en el mundo somos más de 4 millones. Mujeres. Imagínense cuántos pescadores hombres hay. Millones. Pero esos millones no alcanzan para toda la población mundial que también tiene que hacer el mismo esfuerzo que hacemos nosotros. Cuidar, pero cuidar para las nuevas generaciones. No cuidar para nosotros, no cuidar para ustedes. Cuidar para las nuevas generaciones, para los que vendrán, para que sepan cómo es un pez, para que sepan cómo es un marisco, para que sepan cómo es un molusco. Eso tenemos que hacer de aquí para adelante. La frase del cambio climático es una frase, pero si nosotros no la llevamos a la acción, no sirve de nada. ¿De qué me sirve a mí venirle a hablar a ustedes si los otros no hacen acciones? Es perder palabras. Y nosotros no perdemos el tiempo. Trabajamos, cuidamos, alimentamos y aparte de eso generamos miles de millones de empleos. Somos la gran empresa mundial de la pesca artesanal. Pero necesitamos que las otras empresas que hacen daño tomen la misma conciencia que toman estos pobres y humildes pescadores. Pobres, ¿por qué? Porque a lo mejor no tenemos la capacidad para hacer todo lo que hacen otros, pero ricos en el conocimiento. Nosotros tenemos un conocimiento ancestral que muchos que deberían tener, pero lo heredamos de nuestros padres, de nuestros abuelos, y hemos seguido caminando para que podamos seguir adelante. Yo creo que una de las mayores acciones que tenemos que hacer como gente es cuidar, pero sin desmerecer al que vive en el borde costero, que somos nosotros. Consultarnos si van a hacer un parque marino, si van a hacer una reserva, si van a hacer esto, si van a hacer lo otro. Pregúntenle a los pescadores que viven en el borde costero. Muchas gracias.
Thank you for that. I think kind of what you were saying, action's not just words. And I think especially like in a COP where there's a lot of negotiations, we need to remember that and kind of call that for people, call that out. And I think what you're saying about knowledge being something that's so powerful and something that you have as a resource, and you know, you're caring for this world for each other and for future generations. It's super impactful and important to remember. And I think kind of on that note, and thinking about impacts of climate change that we're hoping and working to kind of fight against, Dani, I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to some of the impacts of climate change that small-scale fishing communities are facing in Indonesia, and then also kind of maybe similar to Zoila, a call to action and kind of what you would hope everybody would take away from that.
Okay, thank you, Britta. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mofi Lisatorio, Tinta, ETF, and WWF for having me here to speak in front of you all during the COP28. And as you know, we, as the small-scale fishers in the world, we contribute more than half of the marine and inland fish catch in the world. At the same time, the small-scale fishers also supply almost of the fish consumed by the developing world. So this is the role, the important role of the small-scale fishers around the world, like in Indonesia, for example. The fisheries contribute around 54% of the total animal protein consumed by Indonesian peoples. And also, the fisheries sectors, the small-scale fishers, employ millions jobs, millions of peoples, directly and indirectly in Indonesia. So, based on these situations, I think we cannot talking about the food sustainability, for example. We cannot talking about the how to tackle, how to alleviate the poverty, the unemployment. We do not talking about the climate justice without granting the sustainability of the fishing activities of the small-scale fishers in the world. So this is one point that I want to remember us, how the situation, the rules of the small-scale fishers is very important for our food security, for our job. For many of us, millions of us in Indonesia is very depending on the fishery sectors. And also, the small-scale fishers is the main actors of the economy, and also the main actors to preserve the environment and the sea. So, one more thing, that I want to remember us now in this opportunity, that we must to talk about the small-scale fishers, because this is very important roles in our life in Indonesia and in other countries. I want to answer the question about the impact of the climate change for the small-scale fishers by telling you a stories in Indonesia since 2 years ago, in November and December 2020, 2 years ago. Around 20 KNTI, my members, my district members in Indonesia in 2020 reported that extreme weather in Fisher Village had damaged more than 100 small boats. Dozens of fishermen's houses was also damaged by waves and strong winds. extreme weather has paralyzed fishing sector activities. Hundreds of thousands of small fishermen were reportedly unable to go to the sea due to the high wave and the strong winds. Hundreds of hectares of aquaculture fish pond were submerged by flooding and extreme rain. Likewise, the activities of salt farmers. This is what reported from our members in the ground, in the villages, 2 years ago. And this is still going until now. In some area in Indonesia, coastal village. And basically, if we're talking about the impact, I think there is 4 main impact of climate change on the lives of small and traditional fisher folks, especially in Indonesia. The first is decreasing the availability of resources. As you know, because the impact of the climate change, there is the fish migration and also the small-scale fisher. They went further to the fish. And this situation spending more fuel and more time. As you know, we buy the fuel in Indonesia 40% higher the price from the normal price. 60% of the cost production of the small-scale fishers to buy the fuel. If we go to the sea more further, it is impact. We must to buy more oil, more fuel, without subsidies from the government. So, the second is the threatened food security. The fishermen have difficulty getting enough food because if we don't go to the sea, we have no income at the time. If the small-scale fisher do not have income, they do not can feed his family. They do not can buy the food for the family. And the third, exacerbating socio-economic disparities. Why? Because fishermen, if they do not go to the sea, they do not have an income, they go to the neighbor, they go to the boss to lend money. They trap with the debt. And the longer fishermen do not go to the sea, the greater debt they have. This is the situation. And the fourth, increasing the risk of accident and health threat in settlement areas. Based on our survey this year, in Indonesian situation, there are 77% of small-scale fishers, they do not have the insurance. They go farther to the sea with the high price of the fuel, with the high risk in the sea, and they do not have the enough social protection from the government. They do not have the social insurance. So when they having the accidents in the sea, the families, they do not have any protection from the government. 70%, 77% of the small-scale fishers in Indonesia, they do not have the insurance from the government. And the last, the impact of the climate change is the eliminating local wisdom, threaten the sustainability of local culture and the vital traditional skill crucial for managing marine resources. So I think one more, this is opportunity for us as the Indonesian traditional and small-scale fishers to speak, to push our government. Just now, before we talking here, there is also the Minister of Indonesian government here, and I talked to him to put attention not only on the nature of the ocean. If we're talking about the climate change in the ocean, not only talking about the mangroves, about the oceans, about the seagrass, but you must also put the peoples in the climate talks, in the solution, how the fisher folk, the coastal community can adapt with this situation and can sustain the activities in the sea. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think that, again, just underscores the importance of the knowledge and the wisdom that you bring. I think that's a great point that you highlighted, that's something that's being lost as well. And among all the other points, of course, you laid out, and I'm sure those kind of resonate with the panel. Turning a little bit to thinking about how communities are resilient to these impacts, how are you working together to kind of combat the changes that you're seeing and adapt to what's happening? I know we talked a little bit earlier, and Zoila brought this up about communities coming together and being kind of a force together in the face of climate change. So I'd love, Sebastian, if you could kind of speak to that resilience that you've seen in your work.
Thank you, Britta. Thank you, Britta, and good afternoon to all of us here. And I'm happy to be here. And at the first place, I place my gratitude to Tinta for making a contact with our national platform of small-scale fish workers in India. And that's how I reached here through cycle of a process. I'm going to focus my thoughts on resilience of coastal communities, because that's the area that I am connected with directly, and I am also involved directly in my state of Goa. And from there, we got connected to around 18 states in India, across the shores of Bay of Bengal, Indian Ocean, as well as the Arabian Sea. In addition to the fishing communities in inland waters, as well as in cold waters, that's the Himalayan waters, from Kashmir right up to Kanyakumari. We have not covered all the fishing communities throughout the country as of now, but we are involved in both marine fisheries as well as inland fisheries, as well as cold waters fisheries. Now, it is the climate change has come at a certain backdrop. The backdrop of already existing asymmetries. The existing asymmetries which are ecological in nature, like usually we see the conflicts related to various kinds of attacks on small-scale fishing communities in the country, in India, as well as in my state of Goa. We have a conflict coming from competing industries who has got competing claims over water. We have an industry that is shipping industry. We have industry that is tourism industry. We have industry that is involved with ports and dredging industry. They want to dig up rivers. So all this is already affected our fishing communities very badly. These are ecological asymmetries that we already are seeing prevalent. In addition to that, what we don't focus is the asymmetries that are there in terms of our society. Like, for example, fishing communities is always looked down upon in India because they belong to lower caste. In India, we have got a caste system, and fishing communities, even officially in Goa, recently one of the EI reports of one of the projects, they classified our fishing communities as Shudras. Shudras means slaves. Shudras don't have any rights as a people. I mean, these sort of things is still prevalent, and this has taken enormous amount of toil on our fishing communities. Like in my state of Goa, for example, the communities are revolted, and Goa has got a different position from India in a sense that people from Goa have got access to take Portuguese passport and migrate to Portugal and to get access to European Union countries. So many of our fishing villages have just taken Portuguese passport and have started migrating not because they don't like fishing, because they don't like to be discriminated against socially. But when it comes to the discourse of fishing, these aspects always remain an undercurrent, and it never gets onto the table of discussion. So because this is not very, very comfortable to say one human being discriminates another human being. Nevertheless, it does happen. So as a result, we have got layers of discrimination, social discrimination, ecological discrimination across the country. We've got in Bihar, we've got conservation measures that are taken by the state through the international agencies, wherein a large number of water has been reserved as a sanctuary for dolphins. It's called Bhagalpur Dolphin Sanctuary, and in which the fishing communities are denied access to do fishing there. We've got the state of Kerala in southern, our southern part, bordering Arabian Sea, wherein the climate change has made such a huge impact that any time the villages might be hit very, very badly. The water level has risen up, and several villages are already inundated already. But this is not being talked about, because one of the reasons why it is not talked about is fishing communities are not strongly organized. Even the kind of organization we had in India in 1980s, 1990s has crumbled, and we are in a bad shape. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to restart the organizing process. To a certain extent, we have succeeded, and go about. We have got certain pictures here. We see the pictures here. These are one of the top pictures that we see. That's river, that's Mandovi River. That river I cross every day because I stay on island. But this river also is repeatedly under target from the sand mining. Though it is sand mining is illegal, but still is going on. And nobody seems to be attending. Government has allowed it to go as it is. Other beach that we see, people are walking towards on top picture, to our top right. We have seen that's Agonda Beach towards southern part of Goa, extreme south of Goa. That is under the prey of Goa. Has got a lot of attraction from investors from all over the country. And everybody wants to buy a piece of land. So this picture we captured because after some time, all the property might be sold and we may not even have access to this beach. And then we've got downright picture about barges. This is one of the conflicts where we got with fishing communities, wherein people, particularly fishing communities, are very often threatened because of these barges. They cut their fishing nets, but more importantly, once government of Goa even came out with a direction that fishing communities should not carry on fishing in the middle of the river because they must keep this navigation channel open for barges. So of course it was fought, etc., etc. And then now we got the bottom left picture that we see. That's a meeting about marinas. Marinas is very common in the world. But however, the location that we've chosen in Goa to set up marina is very unique location. It's a breeding ground for fishery, spawning place for fish. It's called Naushi Bay. It's inside Zuari River, connected directly to the Arabian Sea. And these communities have been revolting against it for some time. The government of India, through its Ministry of Shipping and Ports, leased out the 1 lakh plus 1 lakh 1 lakh square meters of land to set up 2 marinas in Zuari River, so that it will be place for parking of the yachts that move from Europe to Thailand. So they want to have a on the spot like midway stopgap arrangement for the rich tourists. But for that matter, you don't have to really jeopardize our fisheries. So this problem has been going on since October 2010, and 13 years the struggle is going on. So, and the last part I want to highlight here is about the resilience. The scholars, the academicians, researchers visit us very often in our villages. But what has been their role? They come, they take away the information, and the fisher people, they always remain information providers. They really does not get empowered, they don't get empowered in any way. So as a result, we have got this kind of a scholarly parasite host relationship in our fishing villages, which we need to break. And that's also one of the areas that we are working. And for purpose of resilience, this is very, very important because so many researchers around and nothing goes back to the community. And these questions needs to be raised, very, very important. I will stop here for the moment. I think I overshot my time. I'm sorry about it.
No, thank you for sharing. Hello? Hello? Sorry. Yeah, I think you brought up some kind of heavy topics, and I think that it's great. Like we were saying at the beginning, this is a space where we're visibilizing or making visible things that aren't normally given that space. So thank you for bringing those up. And yeah, I'm sure those resonated with some of the panelists. I saw a lot of head nodding. We have some time for questions from the audience. If anybody has any questions, or if any of the panelists have questions or comments on others' talks, we can do that too. Does anybody from the audience want to ask our panelists something? Any takers? Oh, yeah. Do we have mic runners?
Hi. Thank you so much. Actually, it was informative to know about. First of all, I'm Rand from Jordan, and it was interesting for me to hear about experience about like the fishers and how they are facing all of these challenges. I have a question. Like, when it comes to climate change, I once I read something like when the temperature is raising, the water itself it became like more increasing in the temperature of water. Does that affect on the work that you are doing, or that the people there they are doing in terms of this? And yeah, that's my question. Thank you so much.
Bueno, nosotros en Chile hoy estamos viviendo la corriente del Niño. Ya, la corriente del Niño ha llevado la temperatura del agua a varios puntos más de lo que son los normales. En algunos sectores, porque empezó entrando por el norte de Chile, ya casi con la frontera con Perú, y empezó con 12 grados, 14 grados, y ya llevamos 17 grados del agua. ¿Qué significa esto? Que los peces ya que viven a la orilla donde nosotros hacemos el esfuerzo, se van a la hondura. Por lo tanto, nuestra gente, nuestros compañeros que viven en el norte están 5 meses sin pescar por la temperatura del agua. Pero esto no solamente hace que los peces se vayan a la hondura, sino que lo que hace también es que trae unas microalgas. Y esas microalgas contaminan el agua, son como jalea. Y también se le meten en la agalla a los peces y los mata. Hemos tenido varazones de peces por este tipo de microalgas. Entonces, claro que afecta al calentamiento del agua muchísimo, sobre todo a las comunidades costeras que hacemos el esfuerzo cerca de las 5 millas, porque en Chile nosotros tenemos resguardadas las 5 millas para la pesca artesanal y la primera milla para las embarcaciones menores. Pero hoy día ni siquiera las embarcaciones menores han podido trabajar por el tema del calentamiento del agua, y eso todo es porque tenemos la corriente del Niño presente. Pero el cambio climático también hace esto, también hace lo mismo. Yo creo que ustedes se han dado cuenta de que el hielo se está descongelando. Nosotros tenemos en Chile, tenemos abajo todo lo que es el campo de hielo sur. Hoy día se están separando los grandes bloques de hielo y hemos tenido bastantes problemas. Entonces, el tema no es menor, por eso cuando intervení les dije que si no trabajamos todos juntos, no sirve que un grupo cuide. Tenemos que protegernos todos para que las nuevas generaciones puedan también vivir en esta tierra que Dios nos regaló. Eso, gracias.
Does anybody else do you want to add?
And the rise in seawater has definitely effect on fisheries, and especially the effects on mackerels and sardines and other prawns have been documented by our organization. There is a material already, as far as India is concerned, that it does has an effect. Thank you.
And I also imagine what you're saying about kind of fish moving further away, and then you're saying how you have to buy more gas so that your boats can get there. So it has trickle-down effects where then it's more expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. This is the responsible of the academia to research about the situation. But I just want to share with you our experience in our members in Molucas, in Maluku, in Indonesia, the tuna fishers, small-scale fishers in Molucas. They said to us, since 20, 30 years ago, they can get tuna almost 3 or 5 nautical miles. Now, they cannot find tuna anymore. in that area. So the small-scale fishers, the tuna fishers, they must to go further until 12 miles, 12, 20 miles, yeah, and so on. And this is very risky for the small-scale fishers because if you look at the Moluccas tuna fishers, this is the small boat to go to find a tuna. This is not compared with the industrial tuna fishers. So this is what I mean, yeah. Maybe if you come here from the academia, from the university, please tell us what happened in the sea now. Why we find a fish more farther than before? Why our fathers told us that the fish is a lot of fish in the coastal waters, but now there is we must to go for the farthest area. So this is the situation in Indonesia.
In fact, this is exactly the problem that I was trying to say. There's such a huge gap between academia and the fishing communities. It needs to be breached. And otherwise, the SSF guidelines of United Nations have used this word in SSF guidelines as fishers as the stewards of the sea, of the oceans. Now, if stewards are without information and bankrupt, and there is no communication with other societies, sectors, especially about researchers, then it's really a dangerous situation. We are running into a very, very dangerous situation. This needs to be plugged at a very, very urgently.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh.
Hello. I was wondering what you see as the best strategies for engaging with the UNFCCC to elevate these particular food security issues.
The best strategy that I see is make our fishing communities powerful and responsible. Rights-based approach is a way forward, but it has to be matched with also duties. The very word, stewards, essentially means duties. And in that connection, I think we need to look at New Zealand. New Zealand's, the protection and the kind of legal governance change that New Zealand government has brought about, particularly with regard to Wanagoni River. And I think that's something that we need to see and whether we can check and get into that kind of legislations and examine it, of course, not blindly. But I think that's declaring a river as a living entity, Wanagoni River. I think that's something and bestowing, apologizing for all that what has been done by the New Zealand government, by the Crown that time 80 years back, and now going back and empowering Maoris there in New Zealand. I think that's the kind of drastic approach we need to move towards. I mean, of course, my colleagues are free to.
My question is, how can we all support the small fishery communities to become more powerful? ¿Cómo podemos apoyar para que las comunidades sean más poderosas y tengan más voz?
Bueno, esta ya es una instancia de apoyo, ¿ya? Que Tinta nos haya invitado, para mí es un honor, porque puedo venir a transmitirle a ustedes los que vivimos nosotros en las comunidades costeras. Eso ya es un apoyo. ¿Cuál sería otro apoyo grande para nosotros? Es que los grandes tratados internacionales que hay no financien a las flotas distantes, porque las flotas distantes destruyen los mares, los océanos, arrasan con todo lo que encuentran. Por eso es que tenemos déficit de peces en el mar, por estas flotas fantasmas. ¿Y quién las financia? Los mismos países que están hoy día aquí. Entonces, yo creo que eso también hay que irlo tomando en cuenta. Hay tratados internacionales muy dañinos para los sectores de la agricultura, de la pesca. Hay que mirar eso también. Insisto, nosotros no vamos a cambiar el mundo a lo mejor por estar sentados acá, pero sí podemos hacer el apoyo de gatillar que no se sigan haciendo este tipo de cosas. ¿Y cómo nos apoyan ustedes? Es que nosotros como pesca artesanal seamos más visibles de lo que ya somos. Dicen algunos que somos invisibles. Desde el primer momento que salimos al mar dejamos de ser invisibles. Hoy día somos más que eso. Somos pueblos ancestrales que alimentamos nuestros países. Y eso tiene que mirarse, eso tiene que verse. Desde un escritorio no se puede hacer, se hace desde el mar. ¿Y cómo nos ayudan? Ustedes con este apoyo que nos dan en transmitirle a la gente que no nos conoce qué hacemos, cómo vivimos y de dónde somos. Yo soy latinoamericana, chilena, pescadora artesanal y llevo la sal en la sangre. Eso, gracias.
Oui, je voulais compléter. Je pense que nous avons besoin de plus de pouvoir, de possibilités. Il faut donner aux petits pêcheurs que nous sommes la responsabilité, sinon le pouvoir, de préserver ce qui est naturel. Parce que nous avons le secret de la nature. Nous avons les techniques traditionnelles que nous avons héritées de nos arrière-parents, de nos parents, et ainsi de suite. Donc, nous avons besoin d'un appui pour nous permettre de déployer ce que nous connaissons. Ce n'est pas la peine de nous mettre en compétition avec les industriels qui sont là pour du business. J'ai dit dans mon intervention que nous, l'aspect de l'argent passe après. Notre activité fait partie de notre vie, de notre identité. Et à ce titre, nous avons intérêt de défendre cela. Mais quand on nous met en compétition avec des gens qui sont là pour faire du business, ils vont faire tout pour essayer de créer les moyens de faire multiplier, par exemple, le poisson. Mais ça ne peut pas être mieux que ce qui est naturel. Nous avons le souci de préserver ce que la nature nous a donné. On ne peut pas comparer cela avec le besoin de chercher à faire la copie de la nature. Ce n'est pas bien. Donc, c'est pour ça que j'ai dit que nous avons besoin, quand je parle de nous, nous sommes les femmes, que malheureusement notre participation est toujours invisible parce qu'on ne nous donne pas la possibilité de mettre à contribution nos connaissances. Dans nos traditions, par exemple, chez nous au Congo, la femme doit toujours rester derrière. Ça fait partie de nos us et coutumes. Même quand la femme peut avoir la possibilité d'acheter une pirogue, elle ne peut pas la mettre en son nom. La pirogue doit être enregistrée au nom d'un homme. Et quand on parle de la pêche, on voit les hommes qui vont en mer. On ne voit pas la femme qui est là, qui intervient en amont et en aval. Malheureusement, c'est déplorable. J'ai dit tout au début que chez moi, je suis la première et l'unique femme jusque-là qui fait partie du syndicat des pêcheurs. Et je pense que c'est un privilège pour moi d'essayer de parler au nom des femmes. Et donc, nous avons besoin de plus de pouvoir. Soutenez-nous pour que nous, ensemble, nous mettons nos connaissances à contribution pour préserver d'abord ce qui est naturel, que de faire la copie de la nature. Merci.
Okay. I think there are three areas that needs intervention. First, programmatic intervention. The first area is treating fishing communities with respect and dignity. I'm saying this from the context of India. Other parts of the world, this may not be required, but I don't know. But definitely in case of India and our neighboring countries, this is definitely required. Second aspect, programmatic intervention is required to initiate dialogue with fishing communities, empathetic dialogue, to understand through a sense of empathy. And third level of intervention, programmatic intervention required to cultivate leadership amongst fishing communities, both in terms of political leadership as well as academic leadership. I think academic leadership we don't talk about, and we just brush aside them as if they are dumb weak, they do know nothing and things like that, and downgrade and devalue the knowledge and the wisdom that fishing community has got.
I Just a little bit to add more. Madam, you can help us to support the small-scale fishers movement by continuing discussion on this topic. 25 years ago, when I was student in the university, I followed discussion on the right of peasants in the world. Now, the peasants in the world, they have United Nations Declaration of the Right of the Peasants, UNDROP. This is start from the small discussion in every corner of the world, of the village, of the farmers' organizations. So, my obligation, my organization obligations, my members' obligation is continuing discussion on this topic, on the important roles of the small-scale fishers, on the important roles of the fishery sectors in the world. We need the strong binding law. We need strong, not just voluntary guideline on the for securing small-scale fisheries. We need declaration. We need convention. How there is no international platform without recognize the right of the fishers, the right of small-scale fishers. So, my friend, this is one step that we must to continue our movement, our discussion, our engagement with the government, with the UN, and we don't know, yeah, until we have a right for the small-scale fishers and for the fisheries around the world, in India, in Indonesia, in Africa, in Chile, and around the world. Thank you very much.
So maybe let me just add to this panel's points what has been said. I think we also need to look at a way the investments need not be top-bottom. I think we need to bring bottom-up, top-bottom to meet at the middle. We need to have more investment of resources, of capacity. Trust that these communities can do it. Capacitate them to be able to rise up to do it, because we can. And we have proved that we can, because once we own the process, then it means you have better impact, you have better change, and you have more efficient delivery of what needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was a really great question to finish on. We don't have time for any more. But I think we have really clear next steps and calls to action. I think it's great that this panel has been at the beginning of this conference, because I feel like you have things to carry forward with you, kind of as you go about your time here. I think the calls to action are super clear. Respect, knowledge, ability, empower. And I'm going to let Sebastian take us out with a poem that he's going to share with all of us.
Well, this is a poem that has direct links to the bottom left picture that was there on the. It's about marinas, the conflicts about marinas. I use a lot of poetry to communicate, and this is one of them. So what is required? I mean, beginning of all that, what we need to do is, it begins with a handshake. So name of my poem is Handshake. My right hand I extend, awaits you to reciprocate. A friendship in struggle on the banks of Zuari River. Struggle is on, battle lines drawn. On one side are fisher people. On the opposite side are trawler owners. On the one side are fisher people. On the opposite hand are luxury hotels, Grand Hyatt and Aldea de Goa. On the one side are fisher people. On the opposite side are marinas. They all battle for land. On the banks of River Zuari. They all battle for space. On river, water for fishing. They battle technology and echelons of power. How long, how far the battle is to spark a fire? How wide, how deep trawlers are to play havoc with ecology? How long state is to condone the damage? The land that host Goa University. Tribal people cultivated cucumber, chilies, and more. People displaced to build Goa University. People forced to get into fishing. And now it's a new breaking news. Marina in Naushi, Marina in Sakwale, fishermen from close and far sought to be pushed to periphery. Marinas needed to boost high-end tourism. Fisher people but pushed to dead end. Once Goa University kicked out tribal people, and they turned into fishermen of Zuari River. Now MPT kicks them second time, and they are to turn into burning coal. Logic of the system, pretty simple and clear. Kick everyone who is not a Brahmin. So don't worry, we are still friends, and I extend my hand for a handshake. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone for coming, and thank you to Tinta and Movies Aleatorio for putting the panel together. Enjoy the rest of your conference, and yeah.